Let me welcome all of you to this very special lecture from Professor Gupta. Special in the sense that most of the scholars critically depend upon the publisher. And it's up to the publisher really to spread the message, which so meticulously the editors and the authors produce. So we are delighted that Professor Gupta, who is a professor of English literature in the Jadavpur Universities, in the School of Culture, Text and Records, and director of Jadavpur University Press. He has produced 4 volumes, one on print areas, movable types, new word order, and forms of knowledge. A 5th volume, Forms and Expression, is due next year. So he was associate editor of South Asia for Oxford Companion to the book 2010. His latest book, The Spread of Print in Colonial India, from Cambridge University Press. Thank you very much, Professor Gupta, for agreeing to give this lecture. As you know, the Kizuna Study Forum was established in September 2022. Basically, this is an international platform. So even today's lecture, we have people from India and abroad joining us. And we have these monthly lectures from renowned scholars, both young and established scholars. And these are chaired by eminent people. And today we have another eminent person chairing this session, Professor Bose. She herself is a Japanese teacher, translator, and interpreter, teacher in charge of Japanese language at Jadavpur University. So what a fantastic combination of Jadavpur University, teacher, writer, and publisher. Let me give the podium to Professor Bose. May kindly conduct the session. Professor Bose, please go ahead.
It is my pleasure to welcome you all to this special lecture titled Translating Japanese Literature into Bengali, a Publisher's Perspective. The topic brings together two rich literary traditions, Japanese and Bengali, through the complex and creative work of translation, editing, and publishing. The history of Japanese-Bengali interaction dates back to the mid-19th century with a well-documented record of cultural, philosophical, and educational exchange between the two nations. Yet, despite this long-standing relationship, the direct translation of and publication of Japanese literature into Bengali remained sporadic and underdeveloped until quite recently. It is only in the 21st century that we begin to see a more sustained, structured, and ambitious effort in this field. At the forefront of this movement stands Jadavpur University Press, founded in 2012. Since 2013, it has been ably led by Professor Abhijit Gupta, who joins us today as our speaker. Under his leadership, the press has emerged as a rare and inspiring example of a flourishing university press in India, a model that, while common in West, is still relatively rare in Indian academia, with notable exceptions like Vishwabharatri's Granthan Vibhag, established by Rabindranath Tagore in 1920s. From its inception, Jadavpur University Press has taken a strong interest in literary translation, publishing works in Bengali from a wide array of languages, including Italian, Portuguese, French, German, Polish, Ukrainian, Latin, Nepali, Hindi, Tamil, and most significantly for today's discussion, Japanese. In fact, the Japanese to Bengali translation series has become one of the press's most acclaimed initiatives. This includes elaborate translation of novels by Haruki Murakami, Yukio Mishima, Yoko Ogawa, and poetry by Hosai Ozaki, among others. These projects are notable not only for their literary value, but also for the rigorous editorial and cultural standards they uphold. To ensure the highest quality and authenticity, the press has worked in close collaboration with Japanese authors, publishers, and cultural organizations such as the Japan Foundation. This partnership have helped bring Japanese literature to Bengali readers with remarkable linguistic precision and cultural sensitivity. Today, Professor Gupta will share with us the challenges, strategies, and editorial choices involved in this publishing journey, offering us a rare behind-the-scene look at what it takes to translate and publish world literature into a local language with integrity and depth. I would like to request Professor Abhijit Gupta to share his lecture with us.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me. Let me begin by thanking the Kizuna Foundation, the Japan India Study Forum for doing me the honor of delivering this lecture. It is publishers are usually not seen or heard, and perhaps they should not be seen or heard. We work behind the scenes, but sometimes we get an opportunity to speak about our own work, and this is such a welcome opportunity to do so. I thank Ashok Jain, Sir Ashok Jain and Professor Shubha Bosu for their welcoming words of very kind words of welcome. I'm really sorry that Narasimhan, who has been um, uh, corresponding with me, cannot be here today. It is really, I'm really sad that, but I hope if this is recorded, she might be able to access it later. Now, as Professor Boshu has already informed you, and she has made my work much easier by telling you about the focus of Jadavpur University Press on literary translations, which is perhaps more by accident than by design, because when the press was founded in 2012, it is also not common for Indian universities to have university presses, unlike in the West, where most universities have a separate and often independent university press. Now, I'm not going to go into the reasons for that. There may be many reasons, bureaucracy, and the general structure of the Indian universities may be that. But we were very lucky that in Jadavpur University, which is a state-funded university in Calcutta, and recently ranked the highest state-ranked university in the country, we have had this opportunity, a very rare and unique opportunity to work more completely independently on whatever books that we have wanted to publish. And because we had access to this very large university community and with a very strong humanities faculty, it was natural that there would be many um, uh, translators who were in fact able to work in original from or translate from the original languages. Uh, but strangely enough, our first translator, that is to say, our chief Japanese translator, was not from a humanities department. He was from engineering. So I should say a few words about Professor Vijit Mukherjee, Vijit-san, my namesake, but he was, I say, because he has since retired, was professor of electrical engineering in Yadavpur University, and but also in his spare time was a teacher of Japanese language, as Professor Boshu is. They both taught Japanese to in after-hour classes, which took place both inside the university and outside. One day in 2014, Professor Mukherjee told me that he had been translating the short stories of Haruki Murakami from Japanese into Bengali, and he asked me whether we were interested in publishing a collection of such stories. Now, of course, we had no experience in working with, because the press was very new, and we did not know anything about the acquisition of publishers' rights. You see, I should also mention that Bengali, both in West Bengal and Bangladesh, where it's the lingua franca, has a rich tradition of translations from a large number of languages. But often these translations are carried out without permission from the original copyright holders. Now, there are many reasons for that. Again, not going into that. But these are, but in order for a university press, that would obviously not be something we want to do. We wanted to work with the original copyright holders and indeed the authors if we had a chance. And for us, this was a learning experience. Now, how do we get the copyright of Haruki Murakami's short stories? We didn't know. I mean, of course, it's easier now in the days of internet to find out who the publisher is, what their email is, to write to them, etc., etc. But it still took us about nearly several months to actually get to the right person, because we first started writing to the Japanese publishers of Haruki Murakami's work, and for a while we did not get any reply. And we thought that we had written to the wrong person. Eventually, we were told that the rights, translation rights of Haruki Murakami's work was handled by international agent called Curtis Brown. Now, Curtis Brown is a massive agency. It does not merely handle writers, but also actors in Hollywood and Nobel laureates, all kinds of people. So eventually, to get to that point took us a while, and then we put it to them that we would like to translate his short stories into Bengali. And then the person I was talking to said, "Why don't you start with a novel? That would be a good way to introduce Murakami-san to Bengali readers." We said, "Okay, we could do that." And then I went back to Professor Mukherjee and said, "What novel would you want to do?" And he immediately said, "Umi Bena Kafuka," which in English translation is Kafka on the Shore. Of course, we were not translating from the English; we were translating from the Japanese. So I will use, as far as possible, the Japanese names. So my pronunciation will probably not be the right pronunciation. So we said, "Okay, Umi Bena Kafuka, let's do it." And we actually then bought the rights. I'm not going to go into the details, obviously, of the terms of that contract, but it was fairly easy to obtain a license to translate the work into Bengali for a certain number of years. But then we also needed to, we thought it would be good to get funding. So because we needed to pay this money, not a fairly large amount of money to Curtis Brown. We needed to pay the translator for their labor. We needed to pay for production. I mean, all of this is expensive. So we applied to the Japan Foundation, and that was also a very, very interesting experience for us. And we were really surprised and impressed by the way in which the Japan Foundation looked at our proposal. It was rigorous. There was a peer review, 2 peer reviews, 30 pages of the translation had to be sent in order to for the application. 2 experts looked at them. They sent detailed comments about the quality of the translation, so on and forth, and which we really thought was almost like working with a scholarly journal. And to cut a long story short, the novel came out, but there was a twist. In that, the novel, once we began it, we found that it was taking. I mean, I think Ojit San found that it was a very large novel. So we had this, and we also didn't want to, that a contract is for 5 years, right? I mean, if you spend 2 years writing the novel, translating the novel, you won't have only 3 years to sell the novel in. So we thought it might be a good idea to do something which we thought was, no one would, was possible. Divide the novel into two parts because the first edition of Umibena Kafuka was also published in two volumes, volume 1 and volume 2. So, we thought that we would replicate that experience of reading the novel in two volumes, um, as the earliest readers of Umibena Kafuka did. And so in 2016, 2015, and 2016, respectively, the two volumes came out. Sorry, was there a question, said, or Dr. Kumar? There's a raised hand.
We will take the questions at the end. Is that all right?
Yeah, I think that might be better. Yes.
And whosoever wants to ask a question or comment, please raise your hands. There is a sign at the bottom. All right. Okay. Continue, please.
Yes. So, as you can see, I've also begun to share my screen. Is it visible? There is a presentation that I'm trying to share. Can you see it, or is it still? Can
Yes,
it be seen?
We can see.
visible,
Yes.
sir, yes.
Thank you.
Yes. So you can see this is the two-volume, and now the Bengali title became সমুদ্র তটে Kafka. So Umipene Kafuka became সমুদ্র তটে Kafka. These are the two volumes, the blue and green volumes, which came out, which were the first two Japanese books that we published in this period. And you can see that there is a cat. I mean, the cats are, if you've read the novel, you know that cats are central to the novel. So both our title pages featured cats who were sitting. So this cover done by Diptonil Roy, also very cleverly. If you read Bengali, you would know, but even if you don't, you can see that the cat's tail become part of the lettering. Now, I mentioned this cover because we had to send versions of this cover for Murakami to look at. He was very particular about covers. We sent him 6 covers, out of which he chose 3. So this was a case where we were also very thrilled that we were actually, Murakami-san was actually looking at our covers and saying that, okay, this is the one I like most. So you can see that there are these 2 volumes, and we also made a few bookmarks with the cat, which were, this is of course Murakami-san. Now you can see here, I'm going to share with you a few glimpses. The book traveled far and wide. This is a post from the Embassy of Japan in Bangladesh in 2018 when they acquired it. This on the right is the translator, Professor Abhijit Mukherjee. You will find here, this, of course, I cannot read, but both of you can read Japanese, will be able to see how this is a report in a Japanese publication on the সমুদ্র তটে Kafka. Recently, we are about to publish, and this has not yet come out, a single volume paperback edition of সমুদ্র তটে Kafka. So this is what it will look like. This is not yet out. This is also one of the covers which were chosen by Murakami-san during that period. One of the things I want to show with you, and that is something, this is we took a lot of pains over the design, over the layout of the work. Now these are 2 facing pages. Now you will see that there is a cat, little cat, sitting on the right hand part of the of this right page. Now I'll try and show you what we tried to do with this cat. I mean, we found that the cat was an interesting device. So I'll share another document with you. So this is the actual book itself, সমুদ্র তটে Kafka. And we made the cat. Let me see if I can show this to you. You can see that the cat will actually move. This is the, sorry, I think I'll just sort of scroll. So, let's say, so you will see that in successive chapters, the cat changes its position and if you flip the book, it will almost give you an impression that the cat is running up. So it's so. So if I actually, I'm just trying to sort of move the book very quickly. Yeah. So you can see that the cat is actually moving up, and eventually the cat will run all the way around the margins. And there is
Yes.
one chapter where the cat disappears. And those of you who have read, this is only for one chapter. Those of you who have actually read the book will know. I don't want to give a spoiler why the cat disappears in that particular chapter. And then again, it keeps running. So we had fun doing this. It was also quite laborious in terms of layout because you had to do this with manually with every page. But apparently, we heard that this was liked by Haruki Murakami. And therefore, this book became, in a sense, our calling card. We in Bengali, the world of Bengali literature, we became somewhat known with as the publishers of Murakami, and subsequently the agent of Murakami offered us continues to offer us the first choice of Bengali translations for any of his works, any new work. We have not been able to take up all of them, but we have published 2 subsequent volumes of Murakami's work. So this was really very prestigious for us in many ways, but also it was an important learning experience for us. How to work with foreign publishers and so on and forth. Now, what did we do after that? So this was Umibine Kafuka. Another work which we, of a very different nature, which we began to do at that time, was this book. Now, if the book says Biplobi Rashbihari Bosu of Japan, now many of you will be aware that a Bengali revolutionary called Rashbihari Bose lived went to Japan in the 1930s or perhaps 40s and lived there for the rest of his life, married a Japanese woman, became very famous for his uh, curry that he made, and Japanese curry. And very little, while great deal is known about the political activities of Rashbihari Bosu in India, relatively little was known about his subsequent career in Japan. So in 2000, there was this book in 2005 by Takeshi Nakajima called Nakamuraya no Bose. So this was a work on Bose of Nakamuraya. It was a biography on him, which was a very important biographical addition to the Rashbihari Bose. Now this was translated into Bengali by Kazuhiro Watanabe. Now, Watanabe-san was part of the Japanese Broadcasting Corporation and used to broadcast a radio program for Radio Japan. And he was responsible for bringing Bengali culture and Bengali literature to Japanese listeners. And he delivered a number of, after he started translating Nakamura Yaobos into Bengali, he delivered a number of Bengali programs. So and it started from 2012, 25th May, and it was a serial program, and he received a very warm appreciation from Japanese readers for this program. And then it was so there were 110 parts to this radio broadcast. And then, of course, he decided that this should be written up as a book. And so he embarked on this laborious task of converting these radio broadcasts into a book, which became, but then where will you publish it? Obviously, you'll publish it in India and publish it in Bengal, because that is where the Bengali readership of this book will lie. And there was a great deal of interest in this book, both by academics who were visiting Japan, as well as publishers from Calcutta, but for a number of reasons, as Watanabe-san himself says, that this did not happen. Unfortunately, it does not happen. And then we had a stroke of luck, or the development editor of Jadavpur University Press, Dr. Debolina Mukherjee, I hope she's here today listening, went to Tokyo at that time. And she heard about this, and in one afternoon, and it was really remarkable, in one afternoon, she managed to meet both the publishers, Hakusuisha Publishing Company Limited, and the agency, Tuttle Mori Agency, incorporated in Tokyo, both of which were representing the work, and managed to get the permissions and all the paperwork done in like space of one afternoon. So we really had this, but unless Dr. Mukherjee, this Devolina would have, had she not been in Tokyo at that time, this wouldn't have happened. But then this was done, all the paperwork was done, and we published this book again, which has become one of our bestsellers. And it really sort of, you'll see here, this is also a Facebook post by Watanabe-san when he received a copy of the book in Japan, and and he was really very moved because he had really given up hope that this book would ever be published. And this continues to. There's a demand for this book. I mean, it has not fallen off. It's one of the best-selling. University presses usually don't publish bestsellers, but in our understanding, this is one of our most successful books and one which we are very proud of. We followed, this is not exactly from Japanese, but our engagement with Japanese writing followed. This was, many of you will aware that a young Bengali woman called Horiprabha went to Japan in the early 20th century and married woman Takeda and became Horiprabha Takeda and wrote in Bengali account of a Japanese, one of the first accounts of an Indian in Japan, not the first, but one of the first, but certainly the first by a woman, and a translation by Somdatta Mondol, who perhaps has spoken on this forum, was published then with a lot of supporting material, with a cover done by Shohei Yemura, himself a Japanese artist who was living in India at that time. This book was also very successful. This is now out of print. We are doing a new edition, The Journey of a Bengali Woman into Japan. In the meantime, Professor Banerjee, as you can see, had become well known. We were speaking at, and we had these programs were becoming more and more common, where we were talking about Bengali literature, Japanese literature in Bengali. The next book that Professor Mukherjee took up was Kinkakuji by Yukio Mishima, The Golden Temple of Yukio Mishima. And again, that was something which he worked on during this time. This is the cover and the back cover of Kinkakuji. The cover has been designed by Sanjukta Rai. And you can see here that we actually did two covers, black and red. So because we liked both and we didn't really want to, so we gave readers a choice of whether you want the black or the red. Again, and so we printed a large number of, divided the printing into black and red covers. Again, a work which is absolutely seminal in Japanese literature, especially those. If you're interested in Japanese novel, Mishima's meteoric and extremely interesting career. This was followed by, and you can see here, I think, a copy of the novel being presented to the Consul General in Calcutta by the translator. These two, and here you can see that I'm translating for those of you who do not read Bengali, two collections of short stories by Murakami. One is called Hatita Udhao, which in the original Japanese, in English was The Elephant Vanishes, a collection of several short stories. Juno Shumetsu, that's on the left, where four translators worked together, including our Professor Bose, who has been chairing today, Abhijit Mukherjee, Anuradha Chattopadhyay, Rima Roy, and Professor Bose. And on the right, we have this more Onano Inui Otoko Tachi, that is to say, Men Without Women, and Koi Suru Zamuza, Samsa in Love, all these stories taken together, again, in another collection. In fact, I have all these books in front of me. So here you can see the Men Without Women, Elephant Vanishes, and the Rashbihari Boshu book. So all of these was part of our continuing engagement with Japanese literature. And these books are continue to do well. Short stories are perhaps often more accessible to readers than a very long novel. So both Hatita Udhao and Nari Biborjito Purushera. And again, I should mention that the covers were done by Kaustubh Chakraborty and Srinankur Banerjee, respectively. Following this, sorry, I think this is a glimpse from the press, and I think here you can see one of our Japanese translators. Now, this is another interesting work, which Kyoko Niwa, many of you may know of her. She has been a long-time teacher in, I believe, Tokyo, in the university there. And Yoko-san offered us a very different kind of a book, a poetry book, the haikus of Hosai Ozaki. These are 20th century haikus, not ancient haikus. And for this, we used a very different kind of a book. It is a square book that the shape was square. The designer Sanjukta Rai used the Sumie style, where this was you use just one color and this was one stroke of the pen. So I'll give you some examples of how it looked. For example, this is a double spread of from the book. This is what, or this is a page of the book. So here you can see that the haiku has been translated in like 2 lines, but at the bottom we provide the Japanese transliteration of the actual Japanese. I don't know whether it is the script in both English and Bengali script. So Bonyasumi, Ometanat, etc. So there were three scripts, 2 languages here. And so this again took us a bit of time to do. We had to do this, but we also were very minimalistic kind of printing, yeah, with this kind of a. Then Ovijit-san then became interested in the works of Yoko Ogawa. Now, as you know, Yoko Ogawa has become very, very famous recently. He's one of the most famous Japanese writers. And this is a cover of the Hikase no Aishita Fushiki, which is translated in English, not very, you know, there's a difference between the translations. That's the professor and the housekeeper. The title was kind of difficult to translate. This we translated Onket Jagoto Odhapoker Prem, which sort of translates as the world of arithmetic and the love of the professor, something like that. This again was a work which was funded by the by the Japan Foundation. And you can see it, and this is a work which also is about mathematics to a great extent. So there is a work which speaks not just to those who the conventional readers of novels, but also to other kinds of readers. And we were very lucky and very fortunate that the author Yoko Ogawa was in fact joined us in an online conversation, joined Professor Mukherjee in an online conversation in order to mark the launch of the book. So these are some of the highlights of our engagement. There are one or two more I should mention, which are of course not strictly speaking Japanese into Bengali, but do engage with Japan. For instance, here you have a book by Kakuzo Okakura. Now, Okakura, as you know, wrote a book in English called The Book of Tea, about the tea ceremony in Japan in the 1920s. Okakura is very well known in Bengal. I mean, I think he was there in Tagore's Vishwabharati. But this is a Hindi translation done by Love Kanoi, literature student currently researching water at Yale University. So this work has already been translated to Bengali, I think at least once, if not more. So we did a Hindi. We don't usually do Hindi books, and as a result, we were not able to do justice to it as far as selling the book was concerned. But we were quite happy with the result. We had an introduction by the noted tea expert Philip Ludgendorff, and cover by Sanjukta Rai, which also tried to portray the tea ceremony. So as you can see, we spent this is our next book, which is going to come out, which Professor Mukherjee is currently working on, and this is Mina's Matchbox by Yoko Ogawa. This is something which we hope will be published next year. It's again kind of a challenging work. Now, these are the things I wanted to show you. Now, and to give you a kind of taste of the Japanese works which we're doing, but of course, this is just a small drop in the ocean of Japanese literature. And we would really want to expand our material. I myself am very fond of manga, so I would like comics to be translated into it. But it is also expensive to publish these works. I mean, if you get funding, that is fine, but it's always not possible to apply for funding in the right time. And we also need more translators. There's Professor Boshu, of course, has been translating, and I've been telling her to do some translations, a larger work for us in translation. Uh, and uh, uh, and the thing, and this way, this is making it possible for us, I think, to for the first time, for Bengali readers to read Japanese literature without referring to the English translations. That was the usual. I mean, if you wanted to read the great classics of Kenzaburo or Tsunari Kawabata or others, you would have to read. Of course, nowadays we need a lot of Japanese crime fiction, Higashino, for instance, and so on and forth, is all very popular. But we are reading them in English. Now, why should that be the case? And there are many cases, quite a few cases, in which one might even argue that the English translation may have simplified or made taken certain cultural shortcuts. And this was certainly, we feel, the case in Kinkakuji, where certain things may have been made more accessible to for a Western readership by doing some, maybe not doing entire justice to the actual original. So a language from Asia, another language from Asia, can perhaps sometimes do a better job in faithfully translating a Japanese work. And I think the readership for that is really there. I mean, there is a lot of interest in Japanese literature. I mean, we translate from other languages, Portuguese, Polish, etc. French and German is well known, as Portuguese and Polish not that much. So there sometimes you have to struggle to bring your books to a readers. For example, we have published at least 2 books, Portuguese books from Angola and Mozambique. Now, most Bengali readers will not have heard their names, the authors' names, and so there is a kind of that challenge that has to be overcome. That challenge is not there in the case of the Japanese book. These Japanese authors who we have translated are all classic authors. They're all very well known. I mean, they may get the Nobel Prize one day. So the thing is, for them, there is an instant for the readers. I think there is an instant connect with these. Of course, the challenges is that these are not easy books to do. I mean, it takes time, and especially I think Professor Mukherjee was telling about how during translating Mishima was particularly difficult because the kanjis used by Mishima, and really kind of difficult kanjis which had to be which really pushed the translator very, very hard. I mean, he will probably be able to tell you much better about this. Are certain philosophical ideas which were being expressed through the medium of the Japanese language. So the translator's art, the translator's craft, whatever you call it, becomes absolutely essential in making these works available to a modern readership. But we hope to carry on doing this, and we also really hope that there are more translators who will want to do this. I mean, there are many who know Japanese but work in the field of technical translation or interpreting to get them interested in the literary nature of translation. And it's also not enough to know the Japanese language. You must know the Bengali language very well. You must write well. That is one thing which we need to do. The other thing, my final hope is that the traffic will also be two-way, that Bengali literature will also be translated extensively in Japanese. We know that some of the Tagore, of course, bit of Vibhuti Bhushan have been translated, but there is a great scope for Bengali literature also to be translated into Japanese. And for that, we hope that Japanese translators and readers and publishers will come forward to do that. Only then will the traffic or the exchange of will be complete in both ways. Thank you. These are the few things I thought I would say. I would be very happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Abhijit Gupta, for your illuminating and thought-provoking lecture. Now, I would like to open the floor for questions and comments.
May I suggest that whosoever wants to ask a question or as a comment, please raise your hands.
Yes, already.
Hmm?
Already Aftab San,
Professor
yes.
Yes, please.
I have raised my hand. May I?
Yes, please.
Yes. I'm delighted to meet Professor Abhijit Gupta and Professor Subhash Bose from Yadavpur. My first connection with Yadavpur goes to Ashim Datta, who taught history at Yadavpur and was on my selection committee. He was a Rhodes Scholar, if you recall. and was on my selection committee in 1964. And I carried on a delightful conversation and correspondence with Professor Ashin Datta. So also you have mentioned Mishima and Murakami. And I would just like to mention that I had the distinct honor of having dinner with Murakami in the home of the Norwegian ambassador, Arne Walter, some years ago, who was married to an Indian lady called Anita Pratap, a journalist of great repute, who was a journalist for several magazines and a redoubtable lady. However, so we had this, and this was in honor of a book that he had written, which maybe you have not yet translated, called Norwegian Wood, which is the reason why the dinner was by Arne Walter, my Norwegian colleague. And you have mentioned Yukio Mishima, of course. I happened to be in Tokyo in September 1970 when the great writer stormed the defense ministry in Roppongi and harangued the assembled troops, and then withdrew into an inner room and disemboweled himself in a seppuku, and his acolyte and lover gave him the coup de grace and chopped off his head. So I see that you have done Kinkakuji. I wonder if at some stage you would do his Forbidden Colors, one of his earlier novels, which has been translated into English. Also, you have mentioned the Rash Behari Bose connection in Nakamuraya, and the book that has been translated into Bengali, which is Nakamuraya San no Bose, no Rash Behari Bose, which is a wonderful book. And I happen to know the daughter of Nakamura and Rash Behari Bose, who runs this very successful restaurant in Tokyo. I noticed that you are doing Ogawa-san and that you have done a wonderful book on haiku, which was most beautifully presented with sumie work in India ink, very attractively done. It is a wonderful publication, and I want to get my hands on it. You said that you have not yet done, or you're going to do, Oe Kenzaburo and Yasunari Kawabata, but obviously they are the greats, and one of them, I think, Kawabata and Oe are both Nobel Prize winners for their respective books. But it would be wonderful if they could find their way to Bengal, which is so literally alive, and one of the literary centers of India. Thank heavens for that. And so it is a great pleasure and honor to be with you this afternoon. And I wanted to also mention that there is this wonderful scholar who is a translator, Mizukami Tomio. Ashok Jain knows him. He has done a lot of translation and written directly in Hindi. He was a professor in Osaka, and he did a wonderful, he's still there, and he's good at Bengali too. He knows Bengali, he knows Punjabi, he's a polyglot. I think he even knows some Sindhi. But he did a wonderful translation of a Japanese classical, sorry, I think I'm not on the screen. Anyhow, a wonderful Japanese story called Kagami, which he translated into Hindustani and called it, he called it Kagami. It's actually Aina. And he did it with his students from Osaka University. And when Atal Bihari Vajpayee arrived in Japan, he arrived in Osaka because Koizumi Junichiro, the prime minister, was out of town. He was in Brussels. So we had to arrive in Osaka. And the first evening, Mizukami presented this wonderful play translated by him from Japanese into Hindustani called Aina. So Mizukami is still around, and I would be very happy if Professor Bose obviously knows him, but if you could be associated with Yadavpur University.
Thank you, Seth. I've noted Mizukami, and I'll thank you very much for bringing this reverse flow possibility into reality. Thanks very much.
You're
I
welcome.
wonder if there are other. Professor Gupta, would you like some comment?
Yes. I think I really, that is very encouraging, the kind words that Professor said that you have mentioned, and also the sharing your experience about many of the writers. I should add here that I think a Kawabata translation by Professor Mukherjee has recently come out, not from Jadavpur University Press, but from Bangladeshi publishing house. I cannot tell you the name of the novel right now, but it has come out. So, that is perhaps one of the earliest Kawabata Bengali translation. Though I recently found out that in the 1960s, the Calcutta publishing house Rupa was also publishing some, at least Kawabata in Bengali, but whether that was done from the original Japanese or from English.
Yes.
Probably from English, because in the Rupa biography I recently read, they mentioned this, which was very unusual.
That's right.
Yeah.
There were two, Sleeping Beauty and the Sleeping Beauties, and there was Snow Country. I think Snow Country got him the Nobel, which is set in his hometown of Niigata. And his home is, in fact, a wonderful museum in Niigata dedicated to him.
It would be great if we could, if I could correspond with you or get in touch with you and, talk a little bit about the other, the Aina and the translator you mentioned. Perhaps that we get those details would be nice. I've left our email ID on the chat box. Ashokji could also help us.
Professor Ashok Jain has my email, so he will communicate it to you, and I'd be delighted to keep in touch with you.
And I would like to send you a copy of the haiku book if you.
Oh yes, I must do my own plug. I have just published my second volume of poems. It's called I Do Not Know Why, and it's published by Birch Books in Bombay, illustrated volume, available on Amazon and Bookscape. My first volume of poems, called Pillars of a Landscape, was translated into Japanese by a great translator called Yokokawa Hidenao, who's now, I think, dead. He translated this book into Japanese.
Sorry to interrupt, but shall we get the time extended a bit? Professor Gupta, is that okay with you?
Yes, I mean, of course.
Yes. Ambassador Seth, certainly I will pass on your contact with your permission.
Yes,
to
please.
Professor Gupta. Thank you so much, Ambassador Seth. I see Takahashi-san has raised her hand. Takahashi-san, dozo.
Thank you very much. This is such a wonderful night that I could understand how non-Japanese people, evaluate Japanese novels. So this is a really exciting the moment that I discovered. The translation work always count for the quality of the translator itself. And then I think a translator's skill plays a big role in it when gaining the international the appreciation and all. But I, as a Japanese, when I read Murakami, I discovered something that Murakami is intentionally writes his novels for the international audience. For example, like when he describes the breakfast, we Japanese eat probably rice and then miso soup and then some fish or whatever it is, but that is a little difficult for foreigners to understand. So instead, he intentionally write it in such a way that ham and egg and then toast and then coffee. So he is, very businessman, in my view. So, it is interesting to understand how translators, whether you would understand that, he is making it easier for foreign translators to make it easy to, digest and then translate for expecting the big sales of the book. This is my number one question to you. And second question is that, recently, Japanese female novelist doing a very good job in, for example, like The Butter is written by Yuzuki Asako. She won the Booker's Prize in the UK. And then others such as like what it is, Kawakami Hiromi, the Big Bird, or whatever it is. So recently Japanese female novelists are doing a very good job. And then most of their contribution is, supported by the good translators. So, what do you think about the recent movement of a Japanese, the female novelist who are gaining the international, recognition? My last comment, which is not a question, my comment is that I came across with one book in the bookstore in Mumbai a while ago, long time ago, and it was Aparajito. And then I was wondering what Aparajito is all about. So I asked the question to the bookstore, book storekeeper, and then she did not know how to translate into English. But after she struggled to explain, I discovered that it is a work of Satyajit Ray, which was a very big, hit in Japan. Unfortunately, it is not translated into Japanese. It is, I read it in English, but I think there are a lot of the great Bengali novel which needs to be translated for Japanese readers. So these are my three questions and comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Takashi-san, for those very thoughtful comments and questions. To take them one by one, I am aware of the perception that Murakami-san writes for, again, with a Western audience in mind. And I mean, this is, again, something I will not disagree with. You see, my position as a publisher is to publish or to whatever my translators bring me. You see, so we are very much guided by our translators' choices of what they do, because often we are not in a position to. I might have some idea about some other world literature, but translator, every translator has their favorites. Mukhad Abhijit-san, for instance, thinks of Murakami as a deeply philosophical figure. And but we have also, I think, published Yukio Mishima's work, which is of a very different nature. So yes, I think the fact that Murakami is so accessible to readers in the West is not accident. It is deliberate. And I, as a literature professor myself, I would agree with that. Murakami would probably be not my most favorite Japanese writer if you were to ask me. But the publisher's work does not really get involved in that. I mean, it's not my own likes and dislikes. I mean, so that is something which I think is felt. I mean, maybe, and I mean, many of us Bengalis, we also felt that when we watch cinema, Japanese cinema was very popular in Bengali. So we found the same debate would happen. Let's say if you compared the cinema if you compared Ozu with who's the famous person? Suddenly the name has gone out of my head. The director of Rashomon and
Kurosawa.
Kurosawa. So again, if you think of somebody like Ozu, for instance, was much more classical.
Yeah, Kurosawa.
Yeah, but Kurosawa is again much more accessible for Western viewers. Secondly, the right of women writers. Yes, I mean we would like to publish more, but again, our knowledge is limited. When our translator brought Yokogawa, we were happy with that because she's really one of the stars of a large growing number of women writers. But again, as I said, I mean we need more translators to step up as well. I mean one person cannot do all these translations, which is why I'm also looking at Professor Bose and others that we need more translators. And finally, the Aparajito, actually, yes, the Satyajit Ray film, it's actually a novel by Bibhuti Bhushan Bandyopadhyay, on which Ray based his Opu trilogy. I don't know whether there's been any translation. I heard that there may be some Bibhuti Bhushan who might have been translated Japanese or is being translated, but I don't have knowledge of it. But that is what I meant when I said that there's traffic the other way is something which we need to talk about and make possible, I think. But thank you for those comments. I think they're very thoughtful and helpful.
Professor George. Professor George, you raise your hand.
Yeah, thank you. I first of all would like to congratulate Professor Abhijit Gupta for giving us such a wonderful information about the publishing house and the activities carried out by Jadavpur University. And I personally feel some kind of envy towards the Bengali readers as well as translators, because I translate very often into Malayalam, and many of Japanese works directly from Japanese to Malayalam I have got published through DC Books and other current books and other publishers in Kerala. I have been translating Natsume Soseki, I have been translating Kawawata, I have been translating Endo Shusaku. I think Professor Mukherjee has already translated that in the Bengali also, the Deep River. So, and then of course, a countless number of short stories of Shimasaki, Miyazawa Kenshi and other writers, and poetry of Ishikawa Takuoku. But all, actually, I feel, a kind of, pressure when we translate, because I have to find out the proper publisher, and then publisher should be financed. Otherwise, they won't publish the Japanese works because they say that readership is very limited. So various obstacles. Now, last 3 years, as you mentioned, I also my publisher got Japan Foundation publishing grant. Japan Foundation is very, very cooperative, very supportive, and I'm always thankful to the Japan Foundation. Last 2021, 22, 23, continuously they have given me publication grant for 3 years. And in that way, I could publish 3 of the major novels of Japan. But as you mentioned, since the getting the copyright is very difficult, and the Endo Shusaku's Kaikawa, Deep River, my publisher had to, spend a lot of time to get the copyright. But finally he got it. And Deep River also, the Japanese title is Kaikawa, that also was translated into Malayalam, and I have got it published. Now the question is, not question, my comment or my request to the Japan Foundation also, and all, present in this lecture, whether it is possible for us to get some easier way to get the copyright, Japanese books copyright in India. That is one thing. Whether should we jointly approach the Japan Foundation or Japanese embassy for making some easy route through which we get the copyright. That is one thing. Second is of course, it's a small question to Professor Abhijit Gupta. How the sale or the readership of translator works in Bengali. In Malayalam, we have very good readership. I get a lot of encouraging views and requests from the readers also directly. What about Bengali? What is the readership? Is it good? So, and then one more thing, is it possible for non-Bengali translations of Japanese work to be published from Jadavpur University? These are the things. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor George.
These are my
very good questions, and I'm very delighted to make acquaintance, fellow translator who has also worked in a similar area and who has a shared experience. Now, to answer your questions, copyright is sometimes quite difficult. Yukio Mishima's copyright was very difficult to get. We had no idea even. And then, in fact, the copyright holders got in touch with us because they had heard that we were asking around. But for a while, it took us even. But by that time, we were quite experienced in acquiring copyrights. It took us a bit of time because no one seemed to know who the Mishima copyright holders were in the West who were handling it. Eventually, they got in touch with us. So yes, it would be easy. It would be very useful if the local, the Japan embassy or a consulate were also to play a facilitating role in this. Certainly, life would be easier, of course. But as publishers, we have to do what we have to do, and that is to do these things. The sales, you see, Murakami has sold well. When I say well, it's also, well for us. We are a very small publishing house. You see, we are good at publishing books. We are not very good at selling books. Book selling is a skill that I don't have. I'm a literature professor. I've had to learn this. We are learning this, and I'm sure more experienced publisher would sell more copies. This is, and the sales are, perhaps less than what I would be happy with. It's steady, but the readership is, I think it would, your Malayali readership would be much, I get a sense that there is a much more, you see, my understanding, from whatever little I know about publishing in the Tamil and the Kerala and Tamil Nadu, I have one or two friends, like, Kalachuvaru publisher, Kannan and others who are much more active in the rights market, in selling and buying rights. You don't see that in Bengal. In Bengali, in the Bengal market, we are not very interested in buying or selling rights. Bengali literature does not, there is no translation from across Indian languages, from Tamil or, for recently I've published a comic book, Vadivasal, written by Perumal Murugan and drawn by Pupen, but there has been no interest in publishing Tamil literature in Bengali. So this is, I think the translation market, though people want translations, the culture of translation is not as it should be. So I think Malayalam world of letters is much better served in that respect. In answer to the question whether Jadavpur University would be interested in publishing non-Bengali translations of works, yes and no, in the sense that yes, of course, as an idea, it's great, but would we be able to do justice to it? Would we know the ecosystem of the marketplace? Can we sell that book? That probably we cannot. That Hindi translation of Okakura, we just put it on Amazon and that's all we do. So that is a frank admission that we don't have the infrastructure to sell and distribute as well as we would like. When that would become, unless we have somebody who knows that language within our publishing house. Sometimes they do. Earlier we had somebody who knew Tamil and Malayali. Right now we don't. So, it depends also on the kind of expertise we have within the publishing house. But thank you for this comment. It would be also great to be in touch with you and exchange notes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Gupta. Thank you very much.
Do you think we have time for your summing up comments?
Yes.
Professor Bose?
Yes. Thank you, Professor Abhijit Gupta and Aftab sir and Mr. George, Professor George, also for your valuable comments. And I think Mitsuko Takahashi-san was also there. So thank you, all of you. Many thanks to all of you for your valuable and thought-provoking discussions. So I would like to thank Professor Abhijit Gupta and for his encouraging initiatives from Jadavpur University Press to set a new benchmark in Indian academic publishing, particularly through their dedication to literary translations. And on behalf of everyone, I would like to extend our sincere thanks to sharing of your experience and vision with us today. And thank you once again. Yes.
Thank you so much, everybody. Just for information, the next monthly lecture for October would be put up on our homepage. And most of the lectures are available on YouTube. In a couple of days' time, even this discussion would be available on YouTube, which is freely accessible. I just wanted to have a sort of feel for the doku show that are very active in reading of Japanese literature. I'm sure Professor Gupta would know about those. I wonder whether you have any observations on these book reading clubs called doku show.
I'm afraid I don't know very much about this. This is
I see.
I don't actually.
Because they do read a lot of books, but I think by and large they read English translations. And yet most of the members are Bengalis. So I think Japan Foundation has been in touch with them. I will also get in touch with them because I find that it's a very interesting, dedicated group of people on Japanese literature, doku sho, and they have branches all over the country. Insofar as selling is concerned, I don't know whether can we make them freely accessible on the net? Or would you have to recover your investments?
Also, I think we don't have the permission to make them available freely. Maybe one story out of 7 that can be done, like 10% or whatever. That can be, according to the terms of our contract, we can make a certain percentage available, but obviously not the whole work because these are all bound by fairly strict.
I also feel very strongly. We, of course, don't publish so much. We have 1 or 2 books, but the sales distribution by Indian publishers is so weak that it becomes difficult, and one feels bad that these are good books, should reach the reader. Anyway, these are questions for pondering, and maybe some solutions would come up. Thank you so much, everybody, for this very lively discussion. See you next week, next month. Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.